Dr. Anthony Fauci was grilled by Republican lawmakers yesterday in a combative hearing about the origins of COVID-19. NBC News senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson has more from Capitol Hill.
Dr. Anthony Fauci on defense.
When you're dealing with a new outbreak, things change.
And dismissing claims he played any part in a suggested cover-up of COVID origins.
The accusation being circulated is absolutely false and simply preposterous.
The doctor, who retired 18 months ago, back in the spotlight as part of a Republican-led investigation into the pandemic's origins and response. A hearing at times turning testy.
Mr. Fauci, because you're not doctor, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked and he belongs in prison.
Suspend.
Fauci explaining what he meant when he testified behind closed doors in January that the 6-foot social distancing rule sort of just appeared, according to transcripts. Now clarifying it came from the CDC with no clinical trials done.
You didn't feel an obligation as the lead scientist at the NIH to challenge that.
I've challenged the CDC multiple times.
Fauci served in his government role since 1984, advising 7 presidents of both parties, and was a prominent expert in the fight against diseases like HIV/AIDS. Back when COVID started spreading, he became the pandemic's public face, appearing in briefings, in magazines.
Here's Dr. Anthony Fauci.
On late-night shows. But since then, he's become politically polarizing, alternately idolized or demonized. Overnight, Fauci saying the vitriol he faces, including on Capitol Hill, means he still gets death threats even while out of government service.
You have performances like that unusual performance by Marjorie Taylor Greene in today's hearing. Those are the kind of things that drive up the death threats.
Testifying emotionally now about the death threats his family has faced.
It is very troublesome to me. It is much more troublesome because they've involved my wife and my 3 daughters.
At these moments, how do you feel?
Terrible.
That was NBC's Hallie Jackson reporting. Willie, it really is. It's extraordinary that they've taken a man who's committed his life to public service and tried to demonize him over masks. You know, the guy's yelling, why didn't you do clinical trials like on masks and 6-foot distances? We were in the middle of a pandemic that would kill millions of people. They didn't know. They had to do best efforts at the time. You're going to do a clinic. Do you think that guy and his family would have volunteered for a clinical trial saying, we're going to try 1 feet. We're going to try 2 feet. No. They were doing the best they could. Vaccines. They were trying to figure out, is this going to be like past vaccines where it creates smart cells that actually can stay with you for 10, 15, 17 years? They didn't know. We've now found out afterwards you have to have a booster, maybe every 6 months. Maybe it's going to be after a year. It is, again, it's what generals call the fog of war. They were in the middle of a war that killed millions of people, and they were doing the best they could do. Whenever they made mistakes, it seemed to me they made mistakes by acting like they were more certain about things than they actually were. But again, they were doing the best with the facts that they had before them, and I find it hard to believe that anybody would deny that reality unless they were trying to win cheap political points.
Yeah, and that's what it is. He's become a villain in certain circles, Dr. Fauci, despite his decades of service under presidents Republican and Democratic, as Hallie just said in her piece. And also, we should point out, led by former President Trump, this country got to a vaccine in record speed and saved untold numbers of lives. Dr. Fauci was there. Operation Warp Speed under President Trump helped get us across the finish line. They never mention that part of it as they object to the 6 feet apart. And of course, there are things in hindsight that weren't right, that were established at the beginning. Kids should have been back in school sooner. We know all of that now, and we learn from it for, God forbid, the next time. But it's easy now from the cheap seats years later to make those charges and accusations against Dr. Fauci. Joining us now, one of the men in the room yesterday, Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. Congressman, thanks for being here. Take us inside that hearing room yesterday. What was it like?
I mean, honestly, it's completely shameful. I think one of the absolute worst things that I've seen in Congress, I mean, Dr. Fauci is an American hero. We should all remember what was actually happening during that period of time. And there were some days we were losing over 4,000, 5,000 people a day in this country. We were washing our groceries as they were coming in. We were separating and distancing seniors. The tragedy that was happening in our nursing homes. I personally lost both my mom and my stepdad to the pandemic. She was a healthcare worker. And so this attack on Dr. Fauci, I mean, not even giving him the respect of calling him a doctor was insane. And this whole idea, I mean, that we're going to attack someone that was leading a group of the most brilliant medical minds in the country and the world to develop a vaccine that saved millions of more lives is something that should be a complete embarrassment to the Congress. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene just led that insanity and shamefulness.
Hey, Congressman, I knew that about your mother and your stepdad, and I'm so sorry. I know this was personal for you yesterday. We heard accusations that Dr. Fauci suppressed curiosity about the lab leak theory in China, that perhaps it wasn't animal-born. What's your assessment of that debate?
Dr. Fauci has been completely transparent. He's been clear that there's a lot of things that we're exploring. He has not ruled anything out. Could it have been a lab leak? Could it have been an animal-to-animal transmission? We just don't have complete evidence to know at this moment. But what he's not going to do is rule anything out. What he's also not going to do is kind of entertain these conspiracy theories. We had members of the Republicans on the committee insinuating that Dr. Fauci was covering up the origins, that he was somehow involved in creating COVID, that he somehow parachuted into the CIA headquarters for secret meetings. I mean, this is the kind of insanity that is happening right now in the Congress. And I take a real issue with the leadership of the Republican House putting someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene on a committee, a select committee that's supposed to be looking at the pandemic, on how we prepare for the next pandemic, knowing how completely unserious she is. She set up this whole committee for complete failure. There's a lot we could be doing. How do we reopen schools faster? How do we better deal with businesses? How do we make vaccines better? These are real questions that we're actually not working on in this Congress.
Well, and one thing that came out yesterday regarding the lab leak theory was when someone approached him in 2020 and said they believed that perhaps they needed to look more closely at the lab leak theory and thought that it may have been, in fact, a lab leak theory. There was an email that was presented yesterday in your hearing where Dr. Fauci said, well, if you have evidence of that and if you believe that, please report it to the FBI immediately. Does that sound like somebody who is trying to cover up the possibility of a lab leak, saying, if you believe that, get your information to the FBI now. They need to see it.
I mean, absolutely right. I mean, Dr. Fauci has served presidents of both parties. He is a committed, dedicated public servant. And again, he led a team of the world's best and brightest to save millions of lives around the world. In the United States, we lost over 1 million Americans. We lost over 7 million people around the world. We were having 9/11-like death events every single day. This was a horrific tragedy, the single largest loss of life event we've had in the modern era. And Republicans want to play politics by attacking this man. And it's completely shameful. We should be embarrassed of it. And so I'm glad he came. I'm glad he stood up to them. He said the truth. And it's important for all of us to continue to support truth, science, and facts, and not these conspiracy theories that Marjorie Taylor Greene and so many others are putting out there in the community.
Hey, Congressman, lastly, we want to turn you to a different subject, that of immigration. Later today, President Biden is going to announce executive orders, effectively gives the ability to shut down the border with Mexico, really restrict asylum. Let's get your reaction to that, sir.
Sure. Well, look, we haven't seen actually the final proposal yet. So, without knowing exactly what's in it, I'll say, broadly speaking, I think we understand that President Biden, on his very first day in office, actually submitted a comprehensive immigration reform bill, one that would include not just border security provisions, but also pathways to citizenship and ways to fix the legal asylum system. Republicans have absolutely done nothing to actually bring that issue up or to actually give a hearing to some of President Biden's other proposals. We can all agree Democrats and Republicans, that there are serious challenges along the border. I think we can all understand that. We also know that we need to fix the asylum system. We have to provide more resources. We need more asylum judges. And so I think the president is doing the best that he can under essentially having no support from the Republican Party on either the security piece or on the piece of actually being a humane country. I immigrated to the United States when I was a young kid. I am an immigrant from an immigrant family. It is completely shameful that we turned our backs on immigration and having a humane and orderly border and process in this country. And so we'll see what the president has to say. I'm still very hopeful that this Congress needs to address broader immigration reform and create pathways for the 10 million plus people in this country that don't know what their future is going to be like.
We should get more details later today from the president when he signs that order. Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. Congressman, thanks for your time this morning. We appreciate it.